What's up guys, and thanks for tuning in on today's video. I'm Gabe. Today I'm going to show you guys how to replace an alternator on a 2010 Camaro SS. This should be applicable for all the 5th generation models, so from 2010 to 2015. This is the 2010 Camaro SS that we'll be working on today. This is the old alternator, and I believe this is actually the factory one. I'll confirm with the part numbers here. I put a link in the description below of the exact alternator that I bought from AC Delco, which is the factory appropriate one for this year and model. I also put a video guide so you guys can skip through the video if you need to see a specific part again. But I've shared some of my issues that I've been having with the car, and people were pointing it towards the alternator, and I've done some very basic high-level tests at AutoZone and those types of shops, and it all points to the alternator. So what you'll be needing for this job is really basic tools here. Here I have a wrench, I have some sockets here. These are all different length for, you know, not really too sure about what I'm going to be needing here, so just make sure you have a 15mm socket, 13mm socket, and a 10mm socket, and you'll see which each of these are going to be useful for. I also recommend using a microfiber towel with the areas that you'll be working on, which is primarily going to be here. And of course, you'll be needing the replacement alternator, which is a little heavy here for my one hand. In the description, you'll find the exact part number and the link to purchase this from Amazon. So the first thing you're going to want to do is actually disconnect the battery, since you are working with electrical components, and this is definitely enough electricity to do some damage to you, right? So this is actually going to be a 10mm, and with a socket and a wrench, you're going to want to go ahead and, you know, remove it here, and you just need to do the negative one. Unless you're going to replace the battery, then you can go ahead and take out the positive terminal, but for now you just need to disconnect the negative one. If you do have a cold air intake, you need to remove all that area here, the filter and the snorkel that leads to it. I have a Verum air intake, so I'm not really going to be focused on taking this off. So the next step after you've removed everything from this area and you've made space is we're gonna take off the serpentine belt here. For us to do that, you're gonna need a 15mm bolt, a 15mm socket here that's going to attach to this 15mm bolt. That is the tensioner here, and of course once you slide it in, put it on the tightening mode. What you're gonna do is simply pull in your direction, and you're gonna see that there's like a spring that moves, which obviously allows for the tensioner to loosen, which will give us the opportunity to take off the serpentine belt. So let's go ahead and do that. Mine is not broken per se. There are just some cracks, and you can see that even with the GoPro. So this is something that's going to have to be replaced, I would say within the next couple months, but clearly the belt's not the problem here. So there are two connections to the alternator that gets distributed throughout the car. That's going to be right here, that little clip there. Then right below it, there's another one. I'll show you in more detail once we take this one off. And this is actually going to be secured by a clip here. At the end of the video, I am going to rewrap this with better tape, because I want to preserve and obviously protect the wires. So right there is the next connector. Maybe a little bit difficult to see, but I just pulled this little rubber boot back, and it exposes a 13mm bolt. Once you take the bolt off, the connector should slide off pretty easily. Okay, so the bolts that are actually holding the alternator in place is going to be this one right here, which is clearly in front of you here. The last one's going to be that one down there in the bottom. Down there. Again, these are a 15mm. Before I actually start trying to pry that open, I'm going to take a 10mm bolt and take out that nut that's securing this line here. Again, I'm trying to avoid taking out the power steering fluid here and avoid getting all the fluid all over the paint and just the area, and just creating less of a mess.
this is what taking that is going to look like for you, without really compromising or harming this cable. So I think it's a pretty useful thing to do. So in order for us to take it out, we could use a pry bar, but I also suggest using a hammer, so you can actually, you know, strike the pry bar. And you don't want to brute force hit it, but definitely start tapping it enough. Going on it. What did you do? Anyways, we snapped that, but it's all good. But right there, you'll see that that bushing there is what's pretty much holding it in place. So what we're trying to do is tap it out. That way it can get past the bushing, and eventually, as soon as it gets past right there, it'll fall right down. There you go. What you could do is like grab it and literally just start pulling and wiggling it. It'll come out. So the next step would be to actually take off the harness or the bracket in which the alternator rests, which is going to be this one and this one over there. I haven't finished removing that one just because my radiator and my fan is pushed out because of my intake, but that's fine. I don't really need to remove that per se. I just need it to be able to slide in and out, which is going to allow me to now maneuver in taking out the alternator.
Okay, so this is the original alternator and this is the new alternator. And I know that this is an original alternator, or at least was changed off very early on, because the GM original factory alternator had this serial number here, 13501-721. They discontinued that and they came out with this one. This is the new serial number, and if you look it up on the GM Direct or AC Delco or any other website that sells genuine GM products, you'll see that this is also synonymous or applicable General Motors or the original alternator. So just in case anybody that wants to or is concerned about the numbers not matching up to the original. All right guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and start dropping the alternator in that little area there. We got the alternator back in. I wanted to show you guys how we managed to do it. Sliding in like this tended to be a lot easier. I actually had my father help me out with this because he was pulling on this hose and that hose. So yeah, butt goes in first and then you just have to wiggle around it, but this is the best way that we found to do that. We're gonna start placing the bracket back into place, slide it forward, or I'm sorry, backwards, and then start tightening the bolts. Okay, so the harness bracket is tightened, not moving anywhere. We're gonna start repositioning the alternator. We're actually going to hammer it in very, very lightly. That way this bushing over here can slide a little bit towards the outer part, because it's not allowing us to just slide it in. Remember, we had to actually hit it a couple times so that it could get out of the bushing. This is just securing the alternator in place so it doesn't move around. The rear or the bottom portion doesn't have that bushing situation going on, so you can just slide that in. All right guys, so we were able to slide in the alternator piece in between the bracket and the actual section here. So I finished tightening up the bolts that secures the alternator to the bracket down there and up here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start plugging in everything. Now once I go ahead and screw this back in, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap the serpentine belt back into position, and we're gonna go see if, well, the error message goes away. Okay, so just a quick walk around, making sure that everything is normal. All the belts seem to be fine. There's no disruption. Obviously the connection seems to be fine because the car turned on. All right, I'm letting the car run and I'm not seeing the electrical failure or service charging system. So I'm gonna drive it for a little bit. Okay guys, so I'm about 7 miles away from my home, and as you guys can see, no electrical service charging system light is on. Well guys, thank you so much for tuning in on the video. I hope you guys found this video informative and entertaining. If you guys did, go ahead and give it a like. It helps out significantly with the algorithm. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It helps out tremendously. We're already at 7,400, which is mind-boggling for me. I can't even believe just how fast we've been growing. And guys, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my how-tos, my reviews, my vlogs, my Camaro content as a whole. And guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you next time.